Hello and welcome to the Creativity Couch. We're your hosts and creativity agony aunts, and along with special guests, we're here to answer all your creativity challenges, conflicts and conundrums as we take a deep dive into the sweet and salty realities of creativity and living a creative life. No topic is off limits, so make yourself a cuppa and come join us on the Creativity Couch.
Hello, I'm Anna from Mama Creatives, and this is the Creativity Couch.
I'm Christina from Creative Consultancies, and Anna and I decided to start this podcast together. So we just wanted, before we kind of kicked off, or before you watch your first episode or listen to your first episode, or however you're choosing to consume our awesome guests we've got coming in, to give you a chance to find out a bit about us and what we're all about, why we did this podcast, who we are, what creativity means to us.
So let's start there. Christina, you are the founder of Creative Consultancies, and you call yourself a creativity and life business coach.
Yeah, creative life and business coach, because I'm kind of about helping people to make their creative work centre stage in their life, really creating like a life they're excited about that really is centred around whatever that creative expression means for them. So whether that means they turn up to me and it's all about monetising it and turning it into a business, or whether it's just about how to structure life so that creativity can happen, or structure your finances so you can make the art you believe in. I'm really very, very creativity centric business coaching, probably slightly different from a straight out business coach.
So you're a business coach. But I also know that you are a musician, singer, songwriter. Yeah. So how did that all happen? Was that something that you started when you were a child, or it just something that you came across when you got older? Where did music come into your life?
Music was a funny place for me, because I didn't start off that way. I was always just all about drama and theatre and writing. I loved reading, and I loved fiction writing, even as a kid. And I've got a degree in film and theatre. But music came to me. I went on exchange when I was 15 to Denmark, and music, it's the universal language. So I couldn't really jump in on a science class, but I could jump in on a music class. So I started doing all these music classes, discovered I could sing, which I didn't know, because prior to that I was tortured with flute lessons for all of my childhood. So I thought actually I was not I was not good at music, or I was not a musical person. And I also didn't have that. I also went to a Catholic school where it was all about, girls had to sing high in the choir. So it was I went to Denmark and discovered my voice. Then music started growing for me, but I'm a pretty late bloomer for music. I didn't start playing guitar and writing my own songs till my early 20s, and towards my mid 20s that I started gigging and touring and doing festivals and recording and actually becoming a professional musician as such.
How would you class your music? Sort of folksy, bluesy, rootsy?
Yeah, pretty much exactly that.
Wow.
And very really oriented around storytelling, really, about just the idea and that kind of sweet spot. And unlike sort of other creative work that I've ever done, where I'm very educated in it and I know what I'm doing, I've got a degree in how to do it. Music's much more freeform for me, so it's it's an interesting creative process for me, because the songs come and I can't overthink them or intellectualize them, because I actually lack the theoretical skill to do my own head in. So my relationship with music's it's quite beautiful, really unconscious, and I also have this sense with music, I'm obliged. I feel like I'm a communicator, and creativity is so much about connection. So for me, I kind of have this sense of I'm obliged to put my music out in the world, even if one person likes it or connects with it, because I have this almost anxiety, if I stop putting the songs that come to me out in the world, maybe that will stop coming. So I'm okay song, I'll put you out there. So I kind of have this unusual, and the perfectionist in me gets anxious about that, because I can't head my way through it.
Yeah.
I have to heart my way through it and just put it out there.
That's nice, heart your way through it. That's great. So you are just a bubble of creativity.
I am. That's the whole thing. Whereas your background's interesting, because you've come from this kind of so you've had, I know you've always been a creative person or had creativity in your life, but you've got a more like a research background or that you've kind of headed your heart. So tell me, headed your art. How do you heart your art? Oh, how do you heart your art? Where's that connection? Like, where's that love of it?
That's interesting because I would say as a child, it was all about heart. So for me, I grew up in a pretty crazy family. My mother, and I had 3 brothers. She was a single mother. And it was, if you've seen a Wes Anderson film,
yes,
it's like that on steroids. I think dysfunctional families are romanticised in film, but in reality, it's actually not that exciting.
It's not that exciting.
It's actually quite hard in as children. I was a very shy child, and I just loved art and art making, and I just put my heart into that.
Like painting, drawing,
pastels, and I made things. I remember I went into this art competition, and
how old?
I was probably around 7. And we didn't really have much stuff, but I don't know how, but I made this amazing, it's in the 70s. I got these boxes and I made these fashion window displays. And I got these boxes and it was all 70s, so we had like berets and boots, and I cut everything up and I painted everything, and I got fishing wire and I stuck them all together, and I made several as if they were fashion shop displays, and that was my art contribution to this art exhibition and this art competition, and I came second. And I put so much work into it. I remember I would just come home and just literally everything was on the floor, and I would just get into it. It kept me occupied for hours and hours and hours. And the person who won had done a 70s rug making of their initials. It's just their initials, and I said,
it sounds so 70s.
And back then I'm thinking, okay, rug making, I know there's a skill and technique in that, but where's the imagination? And mine was just this whole big thing that I had created, generated from nothing. And it was all really, every outfit was different, but it was all like a collection. And I put so much effort into it, and I was shocked. But it was actually an awakening for me, even at a young age, that the art world and competitions and those sorts of nepotism exists in the world. And for me it was like, okay, I don't need to win. I was upset, but for me I was really proud of what I had created from nothing.
Yeah.
And I just was really connected with my imagination. I had a lot of support from my family, and I basically would...
So dysfunctional but supportive
in the creative area. One of my brothers is very musical, and we all had something, and that was my thing. And I would just sit and draw for hours. It was my way of connecting with trying to understand the world.
Yeah.
My mother's quite a complicated woman, and I would just draw her for years. I would paint and draw and try to get under her skin and find out who she was. So she would sit for me, and she was very good like that. And I would literally try to draw her and look at her with such detail when you're drawing, to try to understand her and really get to know her. And that's what drawing and art did for me, was trying to make sense of this world. And so for me, that's what I did. I just grew up, and I knew that there was this power in art. There was this power. It was more than just making things look like they did, which is what I could do from a young age. I could make something look quite realistic, so I got a lot of, I guess, positive affirmation that I was this amazing artist. But really it was also this transportation or trance-like experience into another world. And so there was this power that it transformed me into another place. I kind of got out of myself.
I feel like my childhood was survived through and escape into creativity.
And so from a young age, I also, what do you want to do when you grow up? I wanted to be an artist, but also help people, because I could understand this power. And I didn't understand that art therapy was a thing. It wasn't in Australia. It was in America and England. So when I was at school, I did 1 week in an art school and 1 week in a hospital in occupational therapy, which was the closest thing to art therapy at the time. And I said, one day I want to somehow mix these two together. So from a young age, I always wanted to use creativity and helping others in a mental health way, and then I discovered that there was an art therapy master's degree, and I went down to Melbourne when I was 31, and I got a clinical art training, a master's of art therapy. And so I also work with children and anxiety, using the power of art materials to help them gain insight and help them manage their anxiety and other things that are coming into their life. So I do see the power of art. It's been in me. I've experienced both sides of it. Now I work with children, The research side of my life, I fell into that when I was 28. I'd been travelling the world for 3 years, and I came back and went, I've got to get a job, a career. And some friends were, I also did a Bachelor of Art Education when I left high school. So that was where I just didn't want to, I love kids and teaching, I just didn't want to be stuck in that system. So then I went and travelled the world and did all these things, came back and fell into qualitative research. My friends had a business and I helped them with that. And then I got offered a job with another company working in the same building. And I've been doing that for 20 years. The interest that I have in that is, it's the same as me wanting to draw my mother. I want to get under the skin of people.
Yeah.
I want to find out why people do what they do, why they behave, why their usage, their behaviours, their habits, what makes people do what they do, the dark, the light, and everything in between of human behaviour. It just fascinates me, and I'm compelled to understand that. I think with this podcast, I want to try to help people with their creativity, challenges, conundrums, and conflicts, and try to really get to the heart of that question, which is why I'm so fascinated to do this podcast, the Creativity Couch, where we get guests in who are experts in their particular problem. I'm fascinated by the different diverse guests that we'll have, and I want to understand and I want to try to uncover as deep as possible in the time we've got the problem that this person's having, and try to have this conversation around that. And that's why I want to do this, and that's where I come from, I guess. And the one more thing that I created along the way was Mama Creatives, which is this big creativity community of creative mothers and creative women, which I started 6 years ago with just a few friends, 6 friends, and now we have thousands of people in the community. And again, it's that thing that I want to understand what makes people tick. But what Mama Creatives is that I give them that chance. I give them that chance to tell their story, and to give them that power and give them the skills and the platform to connect with their identity and who they are, and feel good about themselves. Now, whether they make money out of that, that's not the issue. It's about them reconnecting with their identity and their creative self. If you identify as a creative, and why it's important to know who you are as a child, or what brought you joy, you can lose that along the way when you get married or have children or travel the world. It doesn't matter, you can come back to it in 10 or 15 years if you connect with who you are. So we can lose ourselves along the way, but if you really have this core thing that made you really unconsciously full of life as a child, like me, with art and helping people. I love being an art therapist, and I love Mama Creatives, and I love helping people.
Yeah.
And so all my things that are me, that I've connected with, is what I do in my life.
Are you making your own art still, or do you think you might get back to making your own?
Well, I have a little garage studio, and for me, art has always been for my own, it's just my own need to express myself, but I don't like to show anyone. I don't need to have an exhibition. I used to want to have an exhibition and all that, but
it's for you. You do it for your process.
Yeah, I sit with my daughter sometimes and we draw and we write, but I don't need to show anyone. When people see my work, they go, oh wow, that's amazing. But I don't need it for that.
Yeah.
It's just my own interest. So if I see the way the colour or the light is falling on that for now, I see the yellow and all the greens coming into that. That fascinates me. I probably want to sit down here with my sketch pad and just try to capture that yellow and the green and the different colours that are coming through from that. And so I just do it. It's relaxing. It's escapism. It's just it's like with your music. I think when you have something, you just want to unleash it, I guess. And that way it helps manage all sorts of anxiety. I don't have any anxiety. I externalize it all. And I think for me, art making and writing and getting it out of my system is something that I find relaxing, but also therapeutic.
I agree.
There's all aspects to it.
I forget sometimes because I do, and I think that's something that's interesting, and like I'm excited to do this podcast to talk about like the whole way your creativity is interconnected, because I do sort of do music professionally per se. I sometimes forget it's there for my therapy as well. Like sometimes I can be stressed and like, oh, okay, I'll do yoga or I'll run or I'll do some, like those things. And I'm like, what are you doing? Just sit down and pick that guitar up. And every time I do, it is like, I sometimes forget that creativity can be just for me, and
it's also for pleasure
as well.
It doesn't have to be therapeutic, but I think it's connected. I think if you give yourself moments of pleasure and joy, then you'll sort of balance and counteract the stress. And so it's about finding those moments, and creativity is great if it's something that you can take with you.
Yeah.
You can sing anywhere. I can draw anywhere. I have ideas. I always bring a sketch pad or my phone, and I'll write ideas everywhere. They're all over my apartment, and lots of sketch pads and books. For years, I just write my ideas down, and then if I think I want to bring them to life, I do, and if I don't, I don't. So, what does creativity mean for you?
Well, I think in a way we've sort of we've touched on some of those. Like for me personally, it's partly that kind of subconscious flow. Without being too oinky boinky, I live in Byron, but there is some sort of connection with something outside of myself or universal that flows through me that I try not to question too much, like on a more sort of spiritual level. But then on a practical level, it is about self-expression. It is about that kind of catharsis, or getting something out, or nutting out a problem through a melody or some lyrics or an emotion that comes like through the music in that way. And then more broadly, creativity for me, and it's interesting because we have a different but similar background, because I also had that sense of like, I also dreamed of like art therapy before it was, but drama therapy before it was really a thing. And I actually started first year uni, I was enrolled in a streamed honours psychology degree, but I didn't get past first year because I really just wanted to do film and theatre, and I just couldn't bear to do stats when there was like all these exciting, fun, creative things to do. But it is about this sense of connection for me with creativity. Like I really feel like, especially now that we're becoming, even though we've got all this social media to connect us or whatever, in a way we're becoming more disconnected, and we're so aware of like all this suffering and pain that people are in and that the world is in on a big global level, but also on a small level. So I actually my day job out of uni was using film and theatre to work with young people with a disability, and migrant and refugee communities, which is sort of how I then segued into doing the business strategic side of what I was doing. But I also had this sense about working with community and this kind of therapeutic side of it, but also connecting community. So I've done a lot of community-based arts events, so music events or arts festivals or community festivals with a big creative part, because I feel like that's the place where we can come together and be reminded of our humanity. So another one of my projects is I've got a music night called the Song Lounge, which is really just about these intimate hall gigs, which are where we connect with our community, and we have food and we share the experience, but we connect with the stories behind a songwriter and find where do we resonate and just be reminded of our humanity. And I just feel like one of the reasons I've stayed in, and like a million people will tell me, like, why do business coaching in creative industries? Like you can do business coaching, in other industries and probably make tons more money. But for me, it's like what I want to do is to facilitate there being as much creativity out there in the world, because I feel like that's where our humanity is expressed. That's how we connect back in with ourselves and with each other. It's how we can talk about like these big painful things that are happening in our world at large, to our planet, but even in our own micro, surviving our childhoods or a relationship breakdown or just a shitty day at work.
I think it comes
this kind of like almost like an accordion of like scope creativity has to just connect us together and make us feel better. So I'm so passionate about it, and I feel like in this one I could just talk about creativity and anything to do with the arts and creative life all day, so that's pretty appealing to do a podcast where we get to spend all day talking to people about creative things, and not just any people, like just super interesting people that know what they're doing.
About a specific creativity challenge that you and people from our communities have sent us. So we are answering your questions. So speaking of community, it's a way for us to connect with people in our communities who are struggling, and then we would talk about their issues with an expert from all different perspectives, and so we can, hopefully they're universal themes that will agree with not just that person sending the problem through, but it will resonate with a lot of people. And speaking of community and events, I totally forgot with Mama Creatives, it was all about having events. So
Yes.
I hosted 100 events, which is crazy and amazing. And we gave women an opportunity to share their story on a platform, on a stage. We did storytelling and story slam events. We did sort of like long form TED Talks. And it was all bringing the community together to inspire people listening to women who had gone through adversity and using the creative process to help them through and share their body of work. And it was just amazing. And so we're having a little break from the live events to sort of do the same sort of thing on the couch with a co-host and bringing people in. And so you can consume and hear and listen to the stories from anywhere rather than having to be in Sydney. Yeah. And
or Byron, or anywhere, or even Australia. But I think that's the other thing is about that, like what I would hope is, like in terms of solidarity and community, is that by listening to the podcast, that even if it's just one person listens to it and feels more understood. No, I don't mean like that, like hi to you, the one person listening. I don't mean it like that. I hope you, our one person in the audience, enjoys our podcast. I mean, really, like if there is one person who listens to it and gets just that steam to go out there, to keep creating, to keep making it center stage, to keep telling their story, to keep putting that humanity or creativity in the world. Like I hope that this platform and all these amazing people that come in can help you guys to feel supported, understood, heard, like you're
and maybe
community.
Get some clarity. And speaking of clarity, creativity and courage, something that when we started doing this podcast, the Creativity Couch, we kind of love the C word. And so there are a lot of great C words out there. We're asking all our guests what their favourite C word is. So let's just conclude.
Yes.
What's your favourite C word?
Conclude? No, it's not. Oh, well.
Favourite C word?
I feel under pressure now because
It's copulation. My favourite C word is, today, is courage. Courage and curiosity. What's your favourite C word for today?
I was talking about Chutzpah, because it does start with a C, and I'm like, you did add that when we talked about it, and I do, and I've just come back from Israel, so it sort of like feels appropriate.
Chutzpah.
I just feel like having that gut, like it takes a hell of a lot of guts to put yourself out there and to be creative and to commit your life, or to commit a part of it or a corner of it or the whole thing to creativity, which sometimes is misunderstood or undervalued. And I just think like, I want that guts, I want that chutzpah behind it, even though it doesn't start.
Chutzpah, courage, clarity, compassion, consciousness, conversation.
And for me, connection. Connection is like probably the hugest thing.
Community.
Connection to self, connection to each other.
Connection, community. We are just going to carry on and do podcast after podcast, and we're going to hopefully have this great archive of material for people to come back to and to go through and listen to some interesting creativity challenges and how we might open that up to conversation with our experts. So thank you for listening.
And if you've got a question, you can send it in to us. And if you have a look at, depending on what platform you're seeing this on, show notes, comments, YouTube notes, we will have the information there so that you can send us an email and ask us your question, and we'll do what we can to bring in the right people to help you out, keep you going out there and make you feel supported. And
one more thing about the C word, you can't sit on the couch without having a cup of tea.
A cuppa.
And so I want to say thank you to Pukka, Cuppa with Pukka. So Pukka Tea are sponsoring the Creativity Couch. They've sent us all this great tea for us to drink and to share with you. And so we have Revitalise, and we have all these clarity and all these beautiful teas. And we also have
another C word, chocolate.
Thank you to our favourite Alter Echo. They are organic and fair trade chocolate, the best taste on the planet. And so we've got that wonderful chocolate as well. So we might be having some giveaways of teas and chocolate. So keep listening so you can win some chocolate and tea throughout the podcast series. Thank you so much. And thank you.
Thank you.
My co-host. C word. Co-host.
Oh, co-host, yes.
Yeah, gorgeous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on the Creativity Couch.
Our next conversation is about letting go, the writing process versus finished manuscript, with special guest author and writing mentor Joanne Fedler. If you have a creativity challenge and you would like us to chat about it, send us a letter to letters@thecreativitycouch.com.